everyone, Alexa Dunn here, and today I am talking about how do you know when you are ready to query your book? How do you know when your book is ready to go out to literary agents? So I'm going to start you off with a little bit of bad news, disappointing news, and that is that I actually don't really have an answer for you, meaning I can't tell you when you are ready. There's no magic answer, there's no real formal checklist, and like if you have yes for these, you're ready, and if you have no, you're not. But I am going to talk a bit about kind of questions you can ask yourself about kind of the state of your manuscript, how long you've been working on it, the things that you've done to it, some of the feedback that you're getting that can often give you a pretty good sense of whether or not you are ready. But I will also tell you that you're never really ready, or it's hard to judge when you're ready. And sometimes you just really have to go for it, pull the trigger and send your stuff out in small batches. I'm going to talk about that a bit. This is like a half, how do you know when you're ready, and half, and then here's what you do when you are, to kind of dip your toes into the water of querying so that, it's not like you're jumping off a cliff and splashing into the water and losing your shirt all at once. Metaphors. So let's start by going over some of these questions that you can ask yourself about your manuscript. So the most important one is your book complete? Because if it's not complete, you can't query it. You must always have a complete manuscript before you query agents. Agents want publication-ready books in the sense that, they're done. You can't query a WIP because an agent can't sign a WIP, a work in progress, because the thing is about books, a lot of people can have a pretty good start, a pretty good premise, but that doesn't mean they can finish a book, can finish it well, that it is a good, solid read. So an agent needs to be able to look at your full manuscript. Now, not only have you completed a manuscript, but have you edited it at least once? Honestly, probably more than once. There is a rare writer who can edit just once and then query a book. Some people draft cleaner than others. It really depends, but the average writer, you will have edited your book minimum twice before you're going to be querying. And it's not just that you've edited your book. This isn't just like a pass to clean up language. You've substantively revised your book, really revised. I'm gonna link you down below to some of my videos about revision so you know what it is if you're unfamiliar, if this is the first time you're hearing this. And specifically, not just have you revised, have you sent your manuscript out to critique partners, received feedback back from them, analyzed that feedback, and revised your book based on that feedback. What you're looking for in kind of determining whether or not you're ready is if you've done the necessary workshopping and revision of your book to ensure that you've done substantive editing to it and polish. You want to query the best possible version of your manuscript. You want it to be really singing and working and as polished as possible. While many agents are, of course, editorial, they will also work with you editorially on your book. They're not looking for total fixer-uppers. No one wants kind of a house that just has, the frames and some cheap siding on it. They want it fully decorated with all sorts of nice accoutrements and little details. Metaphors again. But the point is, you want to put forward your best possible work. Which brings me to another important question that you can ask yourself. Have you done as much as you possibly can on the book? You've edited it, you've polished it, and you just can't think of anything further to do to it. You've reached your creative limit on editing the work. Very often that's a sign that it is indeed ready to query, in the sense that you've done as much as you can do with the help of critique partners and so on to the manuscript. Now that said, very often you'll find you go out and you query and you get some rejections. Sometimes they're personalized rejections, and just one personalized rejection from an agent can blow the whole thing wide open. You see their rejection and go, oh, now I know how to fix it. That does happen, but the thing is, you couldn't have done that. You couldn't have received that bit of wisdom without querying. Not that agents are kind of free editorial services. They're not complicated. Now back to your CPs. Other things you can ask yourself, and these are all about your CPs. The critique partners that you have, do you think their books are pretty polished, pretty good, query ready? Even have they been querying with pretty good results, pretty good request rates? Have they gotten close to having an agent? Or could they even be agented? You want to evaluate your critique partners and then listen to their opinions. It's a great idea to ask a critique partner, do you think I'm ready to query? And if you've analyzed them and you trust them, then you can trust their opinion if they tell you that yes, they think you are ready. If you're less certain of your critique partners and you're all kind of fumbling around in the dark, doesn't work quite as well, but that is definitely something that you can do. Another thing you can kind of think about and look for, this is actually more of a red flag. If you've sent out your manuscript to a bunch of different people, critique partners, beta readers, and so on, and you find that many of them seem to be stalling, they read the first 50 pages and then don't push forward. It takes them months to finish the book. You might have a pacing problem. In this case, it's very important to ask them, well, why did you put down the book? Why weren't you compelled to read on, read faster? What tripped you up? Were there parts where you were bored? And this often, of course, means you do have more editing to work before you go out to query, because an agent is going to read your book very similar to a critique partner or a beta reader. And if the critique partners and beta readers are stalling and not finishing the book, the same thing is likely going to happen with an agent. So that's a great sign that you're not ready. So the next thing to think about is the market. Scary, right? If the market seems to be narrowing for the kind of book that you've written and you know it, sometimes it's better to query sooner rather than later. You never want to send out sloppy work or work that isn't ready, but there is such thing as revising your book too long, sitting on your book too long, and missing a moment. So sometimes it is worth querying sooner rather than later in these cases. And then just in terms of literally being ready to query, it's not just about the manuscript, it's about the query. So ask yourself, have you written a query? Have you workshopped it in multiple places where, essentially professionals or experienced individuals have taken a look at it? There are tons of forums where you can post your query. You want to make sure you've gotten a lot of feedback and you feel pretty strong and confident in your pitch. So really, those are the things I want you to ask yourself, because as I said, it's not kind of a magic automatic thing. You just kind of have to think about these different factors and then go with your gut. Sometimes you just have to do it. Like I said, just dip your toe in the water. And so now I want to talk a little bit about how I actually advise you query when you're unsure or you're scared or really just generally. Welcome to How Alexa Queries or Queried Her Novels. So I highly recommend batch querying. It basically means you don't shotgun, you don't shoot everything out all at once. And the reason for this is if you query in small, smart batches, you can get a sense whether or not your query is working, whether or not your pages are working, and also sometimes potentially if you're getting personalized rejections back, identify issues with the manuscript, and so it then becomes easy to pull it from querying to revise it, but you haven't burned through every single potential good agent on your list, and you can always go back out with the better version of your manuscript later. So how do you query in batches? What strategy do I recommend you approach agents with? So I suggest compiling your list and making sure it has a steady variety of top-tier agents and what I'll call mid-tier agents. Bottom-tier agents, why would you query them? They're on the bottom of the tier. So you want a mix of these. You also want a mix of agents who are very established, who have, kind of bigger lists, or maybe just lists that have a lot more big names on them, as well as newer agents who are still at good agencies being mentored by good people, but essentially the fresher agents who are building their lists, who have great potential to break out as great agents. You want a mix of these. Then you want a mix of agents who respond fast and who respond kind of mid to slow. But when you're doing your test batch, you're going to focus on the quick responders because you want to know pretty quickly whether or not your query is working. So essentially, I recommend your test batch is 3 to 5 agents. You could even do just 3. I think my first test batch for Brightly Burning was literally 3 agents. And I purposely picked the ones who respond in 1 to 2 days, week max. And so this can be a variety of, by the way, the top tier agents and the mid tier agents, kind of the established and the new. You're going by response rate, but also kind of importance rate to you. We all have dream agents, even though having dream agents is kind of dangerous, but don't put your dream agent in your test batch. So meaning it can still be top agents in your test batch, but maybe not the top agent for you. So the test batch is to see if your query works. How many requests do you get from that query? If it's 0, something's wrong with your query 90% of the time. But if you get a few, it's working. So beyond this, you have a couple of requests. They're for partials usually, but sometimes they're for a full. Next, as you continue to send out batches, keep going in small batches because yes, you know the query works. The next test is, does the manuscript work? And that's the question you've been asking all along. Are you ready to query? So this is when you have to start waiting for responses on requested material to come in. And what you have to hope for is personalized rejections, but even if you don't get those. So let's say rejections start rolling in on partials and fulls, and they're mostly forms. Something is definitely wrong with your book. It's back to the drawing board. And the agent may or may not tell you what the problem is, but definitely if you're getting form rejections, there's something off with the reading experience. But sometimes you also get personalized rejections, especially on fulls, and they will actually tell you why they're passing. Sometimes it's going to be very general. It's not the right fit for them. It's not the right voice. This tends to indicate that it's subjective and you can keep querying the manuscript as is. But sometimes they're going to give you very specific reasons and they might tell you what's wrong with your book. So in these cases, go back and revise again and go back out and query after that revision. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of how do you know when you're ready to query? And the answer is you don't always. You just kind of do your best and you wing it. Sometimes you're right and sometimes you're wrong. And querying is not a science, it's definitely an art. But this is kind of my tips and tricks, best practices, questions to ask yourself that hopefully help you guys identify whether or not you're ready. I think I get this question more than almost any other question on this channel. We get this question all the time in the novelty live chats. I know that you guys are twisting yourself into pretzels trying to figure out if you're ready. And it's, yeah, you just have to kind of do your best, make your best assessment of where you are, and then query in smart, small batches, testing your work. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and I will make more videos of this nature, helping you figure stuff out about your books and querying and the industry. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that. I post new videos 2 to 3 times a week. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, guys, happy writing and good luck with querying.